The following program is brought to you in part by the film Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace.
Hi, I'm Leon Charney, and this is the Leon Charney Report. And today we have with us a very unusual man, a man who gave up his practice of medicine to run for the Knesset. Usually they need doctors in the Knesset, so you go the other way. But this is a famous Brigadier General, Ephraim Sneh, who was the civil administrator of the West Bank, and is the son of a very famous father. Welcome to the show, Ephraim.
Good evening.
What brings you to America on such a hectic trip? You told me, you're here for only 4 days.
4 days, yes.
Why?
4 days because I have to be back in the Knesset.
That I understand.
I use the time between two sessions of the Knesset to be here. Monday I am back in Jerusalem.
So your main focus of this trip is what?
Well, what I try to do is to meet people, members of the American Jewish community, and I try to recruit them to support the security and peace policy of our government. We call it in Hebrew hasbara, and there is no good English for
information.
This. Yes.
You're a medical man. You graduated medical school, and you practice medicine. Now there was sort of a semi-revolution in the Labor Party, of which you're a member of, in that they had direct elections for the first time. You know, the last election they had, I walked the lawn with Abba Eben when they discouraged him from voting, and he went down, he didn't get elected. So you decided to go into politics, and this is your first term as a Knesset member, correct?
That's correct.
In London we call you backbenchers, right?
No, I can't say that I'm a backbencher.
But you came in very high. You came in 14 out of a list of about 50?
Yes. About this electoral reform, in '88, very shortly after I retired, I was the victim of the old system, somehow like Mr. Abba Eben, because some of my opponents succeeded, from the machinery, they succeeded to kick me out of the list of candidates. They didn't enable me even to run for the Knesset, yes. And the result of this was that, together with General
Or, Chairman of the Defense and Knesset Foreign Affairs Committee.
Yes.
Very important job. We had him on the show.
So, General Or and the young attorney by the name of Yitzhak Herzog, three of us, very fresh.
Herzog's son?
That's true. That's true. The president's son.
Former president.
Former president.
We have a very good friend as a president.
Yes, I know. So three of us, we were new in the party. We waged a campaign to reform the electoral system of the party and to introduce to the Labour Party the primary system as here in the United States, and to shift the power from the machinery of the party to the members.
So look what happened. Likud followed you, and a man called Bibi Netanyahu all of a sudden became the, not the prince, he now is the king of the Likud, which I'm not sure what it does, but he is the party chairman.
It's a temporary kingdom.
They followed you very closely.
Yes. For us, it was very important that we are leading the process of democratization in the Israeli politics.
But Ephraim, when I was in Israel a couple of weeks ago, I just come back, they tabled the bill for direct election of prime minister. It's gotten ruffled up in the Knesset. Libai, who's your Minister of Justice, is having some tussles with the Peres camp. Is that a correct statement?
No, it has nothing to do with those camps. There are some second thoughts about this law in Israel, and what people are afraid that the new law gives too many authorities to the prime minister and too little checks and balances and more falls to the parliament, to the Knesset. So there are only two sub-paragraphs which are now in dispute. Is if the Prime Minister can appoint his ministers without any approval, or through confirmation process, as here in the United States, and how many members of the Knesset are needed to vote a non-confidence vote against the government. These are the two issues which are in dispute right now.
Is there a law now that says in 1996 the next election of the Prime Minister will be direct?
Yes, it will be direct.
So in other words, they're just squabbling or quivering, having a little play in the Knesset over some subcontracts.
No, I mean the current dispute is on secondary issues, but this will be a change in the Israeli politics.
Are you considered, in labels, are you considered a hawk or a dove?
It's a good question. I'm quite reluctant to be considered as a bird. I'm
Larry Bird.
No. I'm a firm believer in the primacy of security in our national life. This is the most important thing. But I believe as well that we have to pursue seriously peace with the Arabs. And I hope that I personify the combination between security, defense, and peace.
Yitzhak Rabin ran on a platform of making peace, getting things done within 12 months, and possibly giving up some of the Golan Heights for peace.
It was not in our. It was not in the list of the promises that we promised during the campaign.
The converse is true. Rabin, somebody told me that Rabin made a speech in the Golan and said that he would not give back land, and that's why the settlers now are picketing his house.
It's not accurate.
Tell us what happened.
I will tell you exactly what we promised.
All right, you're going to hold it for 1 minute. We'll cut for a commercial break. This is America. It's like Channel 2 in Israel now. We have commercials, and he'll come back and explain the whole story. We'll be back in 1 minute after commercial break. And Brigadier General, who's a doctor, Sneh, very famous name in Israel, will come back and explain to us the Labour Party's platform vis-a-vis the Golan Heights, the West Bank, Judea, and Samaria.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the backdoor channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover The Mystery of the Kaddish. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD and Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Mole Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs and Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
We're back. I'm Leon Charney, and we're talking to Dr. Ephraim Sneh, Brigadier General retired Ephraim Sneh, who started out his career as a doctor and wound up as a civil administrator of the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, and the West Bank, the whole business, huh?
The West Bank.
It's fascinating to me how the metamorphosis from doctor to civil administrator. You were actually a Brigadier General for the Medical Corps, is that correct?
No, I was a commander of one of the elite units of the Israeli army.
Non-medical unit?
Non-medical.
Really?
Yes, I was also a commander of the security zone in South Lebanon. And
we were up there. We interviewed General Achad.
Well, I used to work with Major Haddad, who...
He died.
Yes,
yeah.
He died. He was a predecessor of General Achad. And my last assignment was the governor of the West Bank, the head of the civil administration. That's the way we call it.
Tell us the policy of the Labor government in West Bank.
Yes, it's very important to know what we promised in the campaign. Two main things: that we are going to implement an interim arrangement with the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza based on self-government for them, and a readiness for a compromise with the Syrians on the Golan Heights. We do not accept the maximal demands of the Syrians that for peace, they should have the entire territory of Ramat Golan, of the Golan Heights. We do not accept it. We are ready if they agree to have a real peace, peace with strategic meaning, peace that would change the relationship between Israel and Syria. Then we are ready to discuss territorial concessions on the Golan Heights. The Labour Party never said that it's going to keep the entire Golan Heights in the hands of Israel, but we didn't say that we are ready to give, even for full peace, 100% of the Golan Heights.
So people are really misunderstanding what's going on now with the Golan Heights. Your coalition is based on a very it's 180-degree positions of different parties. They have Meretz, which is extremely left-wing and dovish, and Shas, which is a religious party. And a couple of weeks ago, you had a lot of problems with a lady called Shlomit Aloni, who made some remarks and had to be disengaged as the education minister, and she was replaced by a man called Amnon Rubinstein. And now a guy named Shetrit winds up being the overseer of Channel 2, and he becomes economic planning minister. It was a nice shuffle over there. A lot of criticism, though, in the country about Rabin being a solo artist on this, that he operated by himself. Do you find that a compelling problem? In other words, he didn't come over to Shimon Peres and say, you know, Shimon, help me out with this problem. Are they working together or are they apart again?
No, I think that they work together quite closely with good cooperation, as Mr. Rabin is the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense, and Mr. Peres is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and they work together in a good and respectable way. About how the Prime Minister solved the problems inside the government, that's true. He takes the responsibility, and when he has the responsibility, he wants to do it
his way.
Yeah, his way. That's all.
Sinatra, I Want It My Way.
Yes.
He did a great song on that.
Yes, of Frank Sinatra. Yes.
Ephraim, I happened to be on the plane with Yochum Rubinstein when he was flying to Washington Sunday night, and the peace talks are now going on. Give us your reading about how hopeful those peace talks are today. What do you think?
I speak about the talks with the Palestinians.
Yes.
It seems to me that we are quite close to a joint Israeli-Palestinian declaration about the principles of the interim agreement. There are some problems, mainly around the Palestinian demand that Jerusalem will be mentioned in the declaration, something which we oppose, about what they call the jurisdiction. These are the main issues. But since we solve these problems in an agreed way, then the way is open for starting very business-like negotiations about how we on the ground implement the handing over of the civil administration to the Palestinians in the territories. We are quite close, but we have to overcome some obstacles. There is another very basic obstacle that the Palestinians should overcome: to change their attitude, to be more pragmatic in the sense that if something is given to you, take it. They discuss all the time the titles, the principles, the formulations, the definitions, and the times go by. What we urge them to do, we are ready to give you, to run your affairs in the territories. Do it. Take it. If we give, take.
Well, we did Camp David. We spoke about this. Basically, you want to give them all civil and human rights except for Foreign Affairs and Defense Ministry. And you can't declare it. You'll give them full autonomy. Full autonomy. I think the Labour Party has a struggle also with a PLO state, a Palestinian state. Am I correct or incorrect?
It is not on the agenda right now. In purpose, we said the final status of the territories, will it be federated with Jordan, confederated with Jordan? Let's postpone it. Let's defer it after the transitional period. Why? Because those are issues which are in quite sharp dispute between Israel and the Palestinians. If we start to discuss it now, we will never reach agreement.
No place. Are we all for a commercial break? We'll come back and talk to Ephraim Sneh, member of Knesset, first-term member of Knesset, but a very strong one, number 14 on a list of 50. We'll talk to him about Mr. Assad, Syria, and how Egypt is fending off its Islamic fundamentalism. It's only of us.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time: the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close men killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover The Mystery of the Kaddish. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening, a book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or audible.com. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD in Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Mole Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs in Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
We're back. We're talking with Dr. Ephraim Sneh, who's a member of Knesset, Labor Party, number 14, as we said before, out of 50, one of the newcomers in the Labor Party. They used to call the princes of the Likud Party. It was Olmert, Meridor, Netanyahu, Milo, and maybe another one. Maybe Ruby Livin was a sub-prince. Milo is now running for mayor of Tel Aviv. Olmert is running for the mayor of Jerusalem. So they all have given up their princely titles and are ready to become mayors in a different situation. Now let's talk about the princes of the Labor Party. You have Ephraim Sneh, you have Ori Or, you have Chaim Ramon, maybe Uzi Baram. Am I hitting some of these guys?
Everyone who you didn't mention.
Avram Berg.
Avram Berg will consider himself as you skipped him. So
who?
Avoid mentioning names.
The people love names. Assad of Syria, ready for a peace treaty?
I'm afraid he is not, at least not according to our terms. Assad is eager to get the Golan back, and now, and this is the change in Syria, he prefers to do it through negotiations and not through violent means. Unfortunately, he is not ready to have peace with Israel in those dimensions of peace which we think are very important. Normalization, A. B. Another strategic balance between Israel and Syria. If he expects us to give up some of the strategic assets in the Golan Heights, we should get in return some other sort of, I may call it, strategic currency.
You know, I did a radio interview this morning. I've written a book called Spy for Peace, which is my recollection of Camp David, and I was on the air in Denver today, and someone asked me about Clinton and his participation in the Middle East. And right now I don't think that's high on his agenda. But then it dawned on me as I was talking on the radio that he's a Southern Christian Baptist like Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter really gave his guts to this peace treaty. Perhaps, we don't know it, but there's an unknown or an unsung ability in Clinton to bring about the peace treaty. My question to you in a long Talmudic way is, do you think that you can really advance these peace negotiations without the assistance, and I mean really firm assistance, of the United States?
We should remember that at the end of the day, it's we and the Palestinians who should strike a deal without any third partner. It's Israel and the Palestinians. The U.S. involvement can be very helpful in bridging gaps, maybe bringing the parties closer to each other. This can be a very useful American role, but the final deal is a direct one between Israel and the Palestinians. By the way, Camp David is a good example. It was Egypt and Israel, Begin and Sadat, but with a
little bit of push from Jimmy Carter. A little bit. What do you think of Jimmy Carter?
I think he was, as far as the Israeli-Arab peace is concerned, he had a very important contribution. At least we are very grateful to him on his assistance.
Do you think that Clinton should call him back as a Middle East negotiator?
I'm not in a position to recommend to the American president about his assignments. He knows better, I hope.
I hope.
Yes, he doesn't need my advices.
The Likud the government, everybody says that only the Likud government can bring the peace, as they did in Camp David. Do you think that's a correct assumption?
No.
Why?
Because, as you know, in Camp David, Begin can't pass this agreement in the Knesset without the massive support of the Labour Party.
That's true, by the way.
Yes.
I was very vitally involved in that.
I know that you were involved.
No,
I
really
vividly remember that.
I remember it, and I went to see Shimon Peres at that point, and Peres said, we are going to back this 100%. You're absolutely correct on that.
While part of the Likud members of the Knesset voted against, or at least abstained.
Yitzhak Shamir, the Prime Minister, Moshe Aarons, they voted against. Shamir abstained and Moshe Aarons voted against.
Now, the problem is, not the problem.
But they fell in love with it after, by the way.
Afterwards. Now, the difference is that the Labour Party is very seriously pursues peace with the Arabs, particularly with the Palestinians. And we have a mandate for this. We asked from the people mandate, and we got it. And we don't need the Likud for this. You know, we have a miserable marriage with the Likud for several years in the national unity government. What came out of this? Nothing.
Stagnation.
Stagnation. This government was paralyzed because we pulled to the direction of peace, and the Likud pushed to the other direction. And the result is that we lost time, very precious years. It's better not to count how many lives were lost in this period of time. It's a pity, so we have to hurry up.
Uzi Baram, a member of the Labour Party and a Minister of Tourism, spoke with me last week in Tel Aviv and told me, you know, I don't belong to the Peres faction or Rabin portion. I belong to the peace effort. That's all I'm interested in, is pursuit of peace. What scares American Jews here, and I'm not sure that they have a right to be scared because they're not over there fighting and giving their blood and taxes.
But they feel partnership.
They feel some kind of partnership.
Oh, it's important. I do not understand.
They get very nervous when they hear the return of the Golan Heights. And I think that a guy like you has to explain it to them very carefully. That if you get your strategic plan with Syria, then things may change there. Nothing stands as is all the time.
Well, let me divide my answer to three sub-paragraphs. I respect very much that Jews here in America care about the future of Israel. I think it's, as I said, it's a part of the partnership. B, this government is not going to relinquish territories to Assad without a very clear change, not only in the relations between Israel and Syria, but as well in the strategic balance between Israel and Syria. This is a very important distinction. And those friends of us can be confident that Mr. Rabin knows quite well what is good for the defense of Israel. Just to remember you, he was the chief of staff while Israel took control over the Golan Heights in June 67. Yes, 67, exactly 26 years ago. So we take this issue very, very seriously, cautiously, and we set a very clear list of conditions in which we are ready to discuss territorial concessions in the Golan Heights. I know that the opposition tries to spread a rumor or a notion that we address this problem in a reckless way. It's a lie. It's just the opposite of the truth. If we were so eager just to give territories, we may have agreement a year ago with the Arabs. One of the reasons that we yet don't have agreement with the Palestinians, we don't have yet agreement with the Syrians, comes from the fact that we insist about what is important to Israel. The unity of Jerusalem, the keeping the security and keeping all the precautions against terrorism from the West Bank and Gaza, and our strategic interest in the Golan Heights.
Ephraim, fundamentalism, very severe problem now, especially in Egypt, causing a tremendous loss of tourism, which is vital to their economic base. And you were an administrator in the West Bank, so you know a lot about terrorism, you know a little bit about Intifada, or maybe a lot about Intifada. I want to discuss these issues with you, and maybe you can enlighten the American audience about what it is to be involved so heavily as you are in terms of control of terrorism. Can terrorism be controlled, Ephraim?
Terrorism can be contained, and as you know, the current government, Rabin's government, has some tremendous successes in its combat against terrorism. 100% victory? No, you can never have it.
I was sitting with Yitzhak Rabin at the Regency Hotel when the Intifada began. It was sometime in December.
87.
87. And his military secretary, Shimon Chefetz, was with me. And they had to make a decision whether he went to Florida that day. You remember this story?
Yes, I remember.
And he went down to the Fontainebleau in Florida and made a speech. There have been people who said that he should have come back home. Would it make any difference if he came? Nothing.
No, no difference. It was an historical development that if he came to Israel 2, 3, 4 days earlier, it couldn't make any difference.
What is the source roots of Intifada? What brings it about?
Two main reasons. The first one is that there is a people of almost 2 million Palestinians who ask for their national rights. This is the first reason. The second one is the socio-economic problems, which are quite acute, especially in Gaza. And when people have nothing to lose, and they have some national demands, this is the result.
Didn't Rabin say something like, you can take Gaza from me, let it go? Is that the policy of the Labour Party?
No, it's not the policy. It's not the policy. The policy is that we are ready to implement the self-government in Gaza first, before we do it in the West Bank, but not with a long gap of time between them, and we are not giving anything just like that.
The Hamas, now, that's a new group in a sense. Not in your day, I don't think. The deportation of 400. Last week when I was in Israel, the Secret Service found this tremendous cell of terrorists.
Dangerous terrorists.
Dangerous terrorists. Killed Toledano, the policeman, at night. Killed 2 policemen near Hadera. I mean, terrible stuff. It seems like they're getting more nerve to do very, very atrocious things, basically. I mean, terrible things. I mean, no terrorism is good terrorism, but this is really bloodthirst.
This is a very dangerous brand of terrorism,
right?
Because they are motivated by religious belief, so they have no reasonable considerations. They are very daring, very desperate, courageous, and there's a problem. In spite of that, our intelligence services succeeded to trace them, to capture them, and it's one of those achievements in our anti-terrorist combat, which I previously indicated.
It was a Saturday night. I was traveling home from Sultanpur, listening to some Greek singer named Theodorakis.
It was in
Theodorakis. And Rabin made a press conference. He spoke to the nation about this. He found it to be that important.
It was important.
It was very important. Ephraim, people in the United States are wondering, can you ever come to a point where you do trust an Arab? Can it work ever?
It's not a matter of trust. The question is, how stable can peace with the Arabs? How peace with the Arabs can be stable? And I believe that peace can be stabilized not by naive belief, but by two main stabilizers. One is the military superiority of the Israeli side, that no one will ever can be tempted to attack Israel again, first place, and mutual economic interest, that the Arab side will see that that peace pays, that there are dividends of peace, and if we succeed to maintain our superiority and to build this mutual economic interest, in that case, peace can be stabilized. The belief, the mutual confidence, it may come later, but not at first place.
What is the position of Arafat in all this? What do you see?
You know, his position is not a stable one, because on one side in the last round of talks, he exerted all his authority to bring the Palestinians back to the table.
Which is good or bad?
Which is good. Which is good. He played in this important and a positive role, because he drove them back to the table. On the other side, you have the impression that when there is some progress achieved, he tries to give tough directions to the negotiators, so they went 2 steps forward and they moved
Trotsky.
one step back. And I hope that in the future he will give them directives only in one direction. And
the law is today, though, if you wanted to visit with Arafat, not discuss politics, it's okay. You're not violating law. Is that correct?
It's not my plans for tonight, but but according to the amendment in our law, everyone who speaks with any Palestinians, even if he's a PLO official, for political reasons, in order to promote peace, he is not a criminal according to our law. If someone speaks with any foreigner and he tries to risk the security of the country, this is a different story, of course.
That would be with an American too.
Yes.
The people of Israel seem to be divided. I sense this. There's sort of a split in the country. So people say that it takes really strong leadership to lead a country to the peace process. I mean, even if you get what you need, there's still going to be an amount of people in the country who have to be debriefed, so to speak, and get to the consciousness that peace is possible and available. I remember when we did Camp David, and I was sitting with Yossi Adin, Ezer Weitzman, Yitzhak Modei. We were singing cantorial songs in a Madison hotel, and everybody was sort of amazed that there was no excitement like there was after war. And the feeling was that the people didn't know what was happening, and they were very anxious. They didn't trust that peace treaty. So it takes time to bring a country or a population. In your estimation, first of all, if I'm correct, how long does it take? Let's assume Syria was serious and they wanted to make peace, and they said tomorrow, okay, we're giving you everything you asked for. Do you think that you could sign that peace treaty immediately, or you'd have to wait till you got it fermented through the population?
Whenever there is a ripe peace treaty, we have to sign. And as far as I know, the atmosphere which prevails among our people, when the Israeli people feels that there is here a tangible chance for peace, a vast majority of the Israelis would support it.
Really? So you're very hopeful?
Yes. We don't trust vague promises, and the Israeli people, maybe because of our history, the traumatized history of the Jewish people, we are suspicious, we are skeptical, we want to have more and more precautions, but, and this is the lesson of Camp David, when the Israelis see that it's a real business, they support peace.
Ephraim, thanks for coming on. We'll see you in Jerusalem.
לשנה הבאה בירושלים.
Which means for our people in Mozambique and Somalia who follow the show religiously, next year in Jerusalem. And you're all invited to come. And when we were in the Knesset, we had a guy named Ruby Rivlin who was out of the Knesset now. He used to give us hot water with lemon, and you know why? It didn't cost him anything.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover the mystery of the Kaddish. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD and Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Moleh Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs and Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
I've just returned from a visit to Israel, as you've heard on some of my shows, and while I was in Israel, I bumped into Fredy Zach, the Deputy Civil Administrator for, or Military Administrator for Gaza and West Bank. And guess where we nabbed him? In the parking lot of the Prime Minister's office. So stay tuned, you'll see an impromptu interview with Fredy Zach. He's a Brigadier General today. He came on the show, he was a Colonel. Standing here in front of the Prime Minister's office, I bumped into an old friend of mine who's been on our show many times. He's now Brigadier General. Give us your nickname, because everybody knows you by your nickname.
Fredy.
Fredy Zach. Fredy Zach, who's now involved in the peace negotiations. Fredy, it's been really a rough time. I know you were Deputy Commander of the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. You've been going through some rough times now, but you're now in the peace process. You're working on it. Are you hopeful?
Right. That's right. First of all, I'm optimistic, like always. I believe that there is no any other alternative except sitting down, negotiating, and reaching a peace between us and the Palestinians and with the other Arab neighboring countries. The peace is not important only for Israel. It's important for both of us, the Palestinians, the Israelis, and the Arab neighboring countries. So I'm optimistic, and I'm sure that eventually we are going to sit down and we will close the gap that happened, and unfortunately, in the last 4 months.
Fredy, you're really an expert on the West Bank. I mean, you took me on tours there, and we visited, and we had the second Passover together when we cut the lambs up together. It was about 2 years ago. What happens when they close the West Bank? What is the deterrent feature there? Does it help for a time being, or calms the population?
You know, You know exactly what happened in Israel in the last months.
Yes, we know.
A lot of stabbing, shooting, a lot of people died, unfortunately. And we are trying to find and to use the best means within the law and according to the law to stop it and to maintain law and order in the territories. So this kind of closure we needed to finish our control in the territories and to uncover all the other wanted people and the terrorists that are still using guns in the territories. This is something that you cannot do it for a long time. It is for a very short time, I believe not more than a week or 2 weeks, until we will finish our control in the territories.
The peace process, Fredy, Prime Minister Rabin said in about 9 months he thought something positive could happen and they could get autonomy going. Obviously it's going to take a little bit longer. You're in the middle of it. Is it a very tedious, tiresome process? I mean, I was through it in Camp David, and I can tell you I put on 40 pounds. You still look good.
Yeah.
It's a very tedious and tough process. Am I correct?
First, let's speak. We can finish it and we can establish it within 6 to 9 months. But you need 2 for a tango. And we are not alone. We have the Palestinians, we have the other Arab neighboring countries, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon. So it is not something that only in our hands. We started a very, very long trip. We did some positive steps in the last year, but there is a lot to do. And the Palestinians are putting now the obstacles by not allowing us to establish the subgroups and to sit down and to discuss issues like economy, health, services, infrastructure, and other things for the interim self-government. So the bloc and the, I would say, losing time, it's not because Israel, it's because the other side. But as I said on the beginning, I'm sure that we can bridge this gap once we will sit down. The target now is to bring the Palestinians to the negotiation in April 20. And after, we will see how to continue and how to promote this negotiation.
Fredy, how dangerous is fundamentalism now in the Middle East? We see Egypt is having a lot of problems with fundamentalism. Basically, the Hamas is a spin-off of, it's sort of a right wing of the PLO. Is this a very dangerous matter in the Middle East today?
Yeah, that's right. The Islamic fundamentalist is now the biggest threat. And it's going to be the main threat for the Middle East in the long term, let's say within 8 or 10 years. As you certainly know, Iran now is spending a lot of money in buying sophisticated missiles, establishing a strong army, and Iran is going to be the main threat for the Middle East. For the time being, Iran is supporting a lot of organizations like Hezbollah in South Lebanon, and these Islamic fundamentalists are doing all their best to stop the peace process and to create more and more casualties and victims in Israel.
When you talk about the peace process, what do you envision? I mean, do you envision civil rights, human rights for all the Palestinians? Is that what is on the table? Ultimately, these people will have, they will live under what we consider a human rights charter. Is that basically the goal of Israel?
No, we would like to put, and we already gave them all the papers and all the things, is to establish what we call interim self-government. And within this self-government that will last 5 years according to the Israeli plan, they will run their lives. We suggested 15 departments that they can start with all their day-to-day life. Budget, taxation, health, education, transportation, religious, you name it. 15 departments that they will start and they will run by themselves. And after 2 years, in the beginning of the third year, we will start negotiate about the permanent solution. We believe that this is a fair suggestion. The Palestinians were never independent. We must understand that in '67, when we entered the territories, we found military government there. So they were never independent. To start with some kind of self-government, I believe that this is very, very important for them.
Fredy, the Soviet Union is gone, so the patron of Syria is finished. Do we have a good chance, or do you have a good chance of signing a peace treaty with the Syrians?
This is one of the reasons why Syria now she would like to return and to negotiate with the state of Israel. We believe that Assad of Syria really would like to solve the problem, but with his terms, not with the Israeli terms. And you know his terms. What we clarified, what our government, what the Prime Minister said publicly, that we are willing to have some compromises in the Golan Heights. We are willing even to do some kind of part withdrawal, but not from all the Golan Heights, because you certainly know what the Golan Heights is important for the state of Israel. It is very, very important. So we are now in a stage that Syria should tell us what is the meaning of peace, how they would like to see this peace, embassies, open border, normalizations, all other kind of things. After receiving the answers, we can, I would say, decide what kind of compromises we can take.
Any fear by you that fundamentalism will take over Egypt?
You know, this is a problem of Egypt, but I'm sure that Egypt is strong enough to control the Islamic fundamentalists. It's bothered them for the immediate time, but I'm sure that eventually they will overcome.